So let's move on to some climate changey Angies type things. This is pretty wild. Michael Moore's film was removed from YouTube. Why? Because a British environmental photographer's copyright claim. So they figured out a way. So this is interesting because, if there's a copyright claim on your video, they won't necessarily remove it right away. They might give you a strike. They might talk to you about it. They might demonetize your video. There are many things that YouTube can do to your video if there's a copyright claim. I've had a copyright claim on my videos before. None of my videos with a copyright claim were removed. But, obviously, and they're going to go into this a little bit, this is politically motivated, of course, because they don't want, they are really pissed. And by they, I mean the establishment is pissed about this film. And they're trying to denigrate it in all ways, any way that they can. So YouTube is taking down the controversial Michael Moore produced documentary Planet of the Humans in response to a copyright infringement claim by a British environmental photographer. The movie, which has been condemned as inaccurate and misleading by the climate scientists and activists, I put that in there, that's my allegedly includes a clip used without the permission of the owner, Toby Smith, who does not approve of the content in which his material is being used. So there you go. In response, the filmmakers denied violating fair usage rules and accused their critics of politically motivated censorship. Do you think that's what happened, guys? Do you think? Smith filed the complaint to YouTube on May 23rd after discovering Planet of the Humans used several seconds of footage from his rare earthenware project detailing the journey of rare earth minerals from Inner Mongolia. Oh, wow. Okay. We can't show these rare earth minerals coming from Inner Mongolia in this video about climate change and about renewable energy and how it uses these rare earth minerals. We can't use this clip. Okay. Anyways, Smith, who has previously worked on energy and environmental issues, said he did not want his work associated with something he disagreed with. I went directly to YouTube rather than approaching the filmmakers because I wasn't interested in negotiation. And yeah, that's exactly how this guy sounds. Like a little crying wank. I don't support the documentary. I don't support the documentary. I don't agree with its message. And I don't like the misleading use of facts in its narrative. Ooh. So I went to the cops. I called the cops on Michael Moore. Planet of the Humans director Jeff Gibbs says he was working with YouTube to resolve the issue and have the film back up as soon as possible. He said in a statement, "This attempt to take down our film and prevent the public from seeing it is a blatant act of censorship by political critics of Planet of the Humans. It is a misuse of copyright law to shut down a film that has opened a serious conversation about how parts of the environmental movement have gotten into bed with Wall Street and so-called green capitalists. There is absolutely no copyright violation in my film. This is just another attempt by the film's opponents to subvert the right to free speech." Right. So interestingly, too, this is a new. Jimmy Dore has talked a little bit about this. I'm not going to read any more of this article because you guys get it. Jimmy Dore has brought this up a little bit in a few of his videos, saying that this is a new thing for, censors, intelligence agencies, and people working behind the scenes, whatever you want to call those people, that work in league with companies like YouTube and Twitter and whatever. So their new thing is to have these like super aggressive copyright claims kind of come out. And I think Jimmy Dore actually was the subject of one of them. The little music at the end of Jimmy Dore's videos, right? The do 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 do. They somebody filed a copyright claim on him for using that music, which is Pretty wild. He said it was motivated, that it was generated by an intelligence agency. So there you go. Moving on to this news out of Siberia. Red alert for northern Siberia as heat shocks threaten life on tundra. New temperature maps for the endless stretches of Russian Arctic lands bear witness of unprecedented warming. This is from May 25th. April 2020 follows in the wake of a number of months with record-beating temperatures in northern Siberia. It's just been like this for the last few months, right? Big, scary red splotch right over Russia. The remote tundra lands located along the Arctic Ocean are now among the region of the world with the quickest warming. Maps from the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration show deviation from normal temperatures of more than 5 degrees Celsius over major parts of Siberia. The visualizations depict average temperature departures in the first 4 months of 2020 with respect to a 1981-2010 base period. Nowhere else on the globe are the same kind of dark blood red deviation as in Siberia. The same maps are available by Russia's meteorological service, Roshydromet. The trend has been going on for many years, because it's a trend. It's not an anomaly. The latest climate report by Roshydromet says that average winter temperatures along the northern sea route, the waters located along the country's Arctic coast, have increased by about 5 degrees since the 1990s. And the warming is most significant in the areas around the Kara Sea. And we talked about the Kara Sea the other day. The extraordinary heat continues into spring. Temperature maps from Roshydromet shows that another heat wave in mid-May swept over the region and parts of northern Siberia, including the remote Arctic peninsulas of Yamal, Gidan, and Tamir. The average temperature on the 23rd of May were as much as 16 degrees Celsius higher than normal. The warm weather in early spring has created a record early ice breakup of several of the great Siberian rivers among the Yenisei. At the same time, the high temperatures have prepared the ground for unprecedented early wildfires. Authorities in the Yamal-Nenets region inform that they are already combating as many as 7 fires. The high temperatures have a major effect on ecosystems in the region. Researchers from Tomsk State University have, over the last years, discovered that a big number of lakes on the Yamal-Nenets tundra have turned into wetlands. Normally, the formation of a drained lake is a pretty extensive and gradual process that takes several decades, says head of research project Sergei Loiko. But in this case, everything happens 10 times quicker. He explains, when a research team from the university was in the region in 2016, a lake disappeared in just a few weeks, the university writes on its website. The year 2016 is so far the warmest on record, but the following years have been only slightly colder. According to the Roshydromet, 2019 was the second warmest year in the Arctic since measurements started in 1936. Higher temperatures are accompanied by rapid growth of vegetation and greening of the region. This trend is very clear for indigenous peoples in the area, the researchers say. Over the last decades, they have seen a significant change of local biodiversity, the appearance of grass, and new kinds of animals and insects. Expansion of industry. The Arctic warming is evident also for the Russian shipping industry that over the last years has been able to make it across Arctic waters easier than any time before. On May 18th, supported by the lighter ice conditions in the area, ships in 2019 transported 31.5 million tons of goods on the northern sea route, an increase of almost 60% from the previous year. On May 18th, LNG carrier Christophe de Marguerite set out from Arctic seaport Siberia in Yamal with a course for the eastern port of the northern part of the northern sea route. The eastbound voyage on this route is this year's first of its kind and comes more than a month earlier than the previous years. A few days later, the carrier was accompanied by sister ship Vladimir Voronin that now is entering melting Arctic sea ice with course for China. All right. Plenty of good news, as in terrible news, for the environment. Let's move on. Here is a report from the World Meteorological Organization. Global climate in 2015 to 2019. Climate change accelerates. Accelerates. Red alert. Climate change accelerates. Record greenhouse gas concentrations mean further warming. Geneva, September 23rd, 2019. The telltale signs and impacts of climate change, such as sea level rise, ice loss, and extreme weather increased during 2015 to 2019, which is set to be the warmest 5-year period on record, according to the World Meteorological Organization. Greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere have also increased to record levels, locking in the warming trend for generations to come. The WMO report on the global climate in 2015 to 2019, released to inform the United Nations Secretary General's Climate Action Summit, says that the global average temperature has increased by 1.1 Celsius since the pre-industrial period and by 0.2 C compared to 2011-2015. The climate statement, which covers until July 2019, was released as part of a high-level synthesis report from leading scientific institutions united in science under the umbrella of the Science Advisory Group of the UN Climate Summit 2019. The report provides a unified assessment of the state of Earth system under the increasing influence of climate change, the response of humanity thus far, and projected changes of global climate in the future. It highlights the urgency and potential of ambitious climate action in order to limit potentially irreversible impacts. An accompanying WMO report on greenhouse gas concentration shows that 2015-2019 has seen a continued increase in carbon dioxide levels and other key greenhouse gases in the atmosphere to new records, with CO2 growth rates nearly 20% higher than the previous 5 years. 20% higher than the previous 5 years. Did you hear that? CO2 remains in the atmosphere for centuries and in the ocean for even longer. Preliminary data from the subset of greenhouse gas observational sites for 2019 indicate that CO2 global concentrations are on track to reach or even exceed 410 parts per million by the end of 2019. Well, we've passed that, guys. It's 2020, and we are at 418. We're closing on a 420. Climate change causes and impacts are increasing rather than slowing down. Very important to understand, said WMO Secretary General Petteri Talas, who is the co-chair of the Science Advisory Group of the UN Climate Summit. Sea level rise has accelerated, and we are concerned that an abrupt decline in the Antarctic and Greenland ice sheets, which will exacerbate future rise, as we have seen this year with tragic effect in the Bahamas and Mozambique. Sea level rise and intense tropical storms led to humanitarian and economic catastrophes, he said. The challenges are immense. Besides mitigation of climate change, there is a growing need to adapt. According to the recent Global Adaptation Commission report, the most powerful way to adapt is to invest in early warning services, okay, and pay special attention to impact-based forecasts. Yes, it is highly important that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, notably from energy production, industry, and transport. This is critical if we are to mitigate climate change and meet the targets set out in the Paris Agreement, he said. How are we going to do this on a radical level, guys? Radical level. Think maybe we should shut down parts of our economy? Maybe, perhaps. Think we should limit consumption? Maybe, perhaps. To stop a global temperature rise of more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the level of ambition needs to be tripled. And to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees, well, we have been at 1 degree Celsius for many years, or just over 1. Now, a lot of scientists are now confessing to the idea that we're actually at 1.5 already, or maybe even a little bit over 1.5. So the consensus on where we are as far as global temperature rise historically is up for debate, and it depends on where you're putting the baseline. Right? Was the baseline 1770? Is it 1890? Is it 1950? Where's the baseline? 1980? Over the 5-year period, May 2014, 2019, the rate of global mean sea level rise has amounted to 5 millimeters per year, compared with 4 millimeters per year in 2007 to 2016, 10-year period. This is substantially faster than the average rate since 1993 of 3.2 millimeters per year. The contribution of land ice melt from the world glaciers and ice sheets has increased over time and now dominate the sea level budget, because there's a budget, because everything is financialized. Ecosystem services and the sea level budget and the carbon budgets, everything is on a spreadsheet somewhere, and they can point to it with a little light up pen. Shrinking ice throughout 2015 to 2018. The Arctic's average temperature, September minimum summer sea ice extent, was well below the 1981 to 2010 average, as was the average winter sea ice extent. The 4 lowest records of winter occurred during this period. Multi-year ice has almost disappeared. That is key. The thick multi-year sea ice has almost disappeared. Antarctic February minimum summer and September maximum winter sea ice extent values have become well below the 1981-2010 average since 2016. And on and on. The amount of ice lost annually from the Antarctic ice sheet increased at least 6-fold, from 40 gigatons per year in 1979 to 1990 to 252 gigatons per year between 2009 and 2017. The Greenland ice sheet has witnessed a considerable acceleration in ice loss since the turn of the millennium. Between 2015 and 2018, the World Glacier Monitoring Service reference glaciers indicates an average specific mass change of minus 908 millimeter water equivalent per year, higher than in all other 5-year periods since 1950. Ocean heat and acidity. More than 90% of the excess heat caused by climate change is stored in the oceans. 90%. 2018 had the largest ocean heat content values on record, measured over the upper 700 meters, with 2017 ranking second and 2015 third. That was just 2 years ago. The oceans absorb around 30% of the annual anthropogenic emissions of CO2, thereby helping to alleviate additional warming. The ecological costs of the ocean, however, are high, as the absorbed CO2 reacts with seawater and changes the acidity of the ocean. An overall increase of acidity of 26% has taken place since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Extreme events. More than 90% of natural disasters are related to weather. The dominant disasters are storms and flooding. We've been talking about this. Tropical cyclones, hurricanes, wildfires, climate change, and extreme events. They're going to just link them all together, guys, which is great, which is good, which is necessary. Again, summing it up in the headline, climate change accelerates in the last 4 years, between 2015 and 2019. And to think that it's not accelerating even more in 2020 is to not even be present and accounted for on this planet. Because you really have to intentionally be unconscious to not see any of this going on or understand any of this going on. But, unconsciousness is what humans accelerate at. Not accelerate at, but excel is what I was trying to say. Yeah, it doesn't look good. That's the World Meteorological Organization telling us that it's getting worse, and it's getting worse much faster. What are the next 5 years going to hold for us? 989 Big Boss says we're at 2C already. Well, some people could say that. Some people think so. While we're at 418 or whatever it is parts per million of CO2, our CO2 equivalent of methane and all kinds of other gases is in the 500s, well into the 500s. So if you broke all those other gases down into CO2, we would actually be, in the 500s as far as parts per million. Which, of course, does not mean good things. Case for mutiny, Russ Hydromet. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think, guys, that about wraps up my report for the day. Or the subjects I was going to be able to touch on today. Human, I totally agree with you. Stealing the election from Al Gore was the beginning of the end. I totally agree with you. Al Gore wasn't going to be, the hero president necessarily that we needed, but as far as climate change goes, we could have been so far along, the path of trying to reverse climate change. But George W. Bush, in my mind, the most evil president that has ever lived. George W. Bush basically, tamped down all the nails in our coffin. He was like, nope, we're not getting out of this. We're never going to get out of this. Hey guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below. PayPal, Square, and Patreon. Also, all of my live streams are available for listening on Patreon if you happen to miss them during the day. So you can sign up for my Patreon for as little as $1. If you want to go check out the live streams, they are all there. Thanks a lot.